Okay, we may be live already. Yeah, I think we're live already. So welcome everybody. This is the, I don't know what number. This is our virtual user group for Backdrop CMS. We may be live already. I do this every time. Hold on. Yeah, I think we're live already. So there we go. I had the virtual stream going in the background. We are live and we are streaming this on YouTube and recording it. So if you like to turn off your cameras or mics, go ahead. But today's topic is multilingual. Just a couple of quick announcements. We have a couple of other upcoming events. In 2 weeks from today, we're doing a virtual user group on Backdrop command line tools. We have Backdrop works with Drush for those of you who come from the Drupal world and use that. We also have a tool native to Backdrop called B, which I've never used. And Peter, who's been doing a lot of work on that, is hopefully going to be able to join us and give us a demo of that. Otherwise, it'll be kind of a roundtable discussion about the state of command line tools for those of us who are interested in those. We have also about a month from now, March 12th, is going to be the next Backdrop Live, which will be a full 24 hours of discussions and sessions about Backdrop. Let's do a quick introduction for anybody who's willing, and we'll just go around and just say who you are, where you're from, and anything else. My name's Tim Erickson. I'm from Deerwood, Minnesota, and I am, well, as I was telling the others, we're in the heart of a deep freeze here. It's -8 degrees Fahrenheit today, which is the excitement in Minnesota. Matthias, do you want to introduce yourself? You're muted.
Yep, sure. Hi, I'm Matthias. I live in Switzerland, which is also pretty cold. Well, it was pretty cold the past few days. I've done a lot of multilingual websites using Drupal, and basically it's the reason I discovered Drupal 6 back then, 10 years ago or 12 years ago. I came to Drupal because of multilingual features, and I'm trying to show some basic things I've done today, and then we can have discussions. Jason?
Hi, I'm Jason Flatt. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I have not done a whole lot of multilingual stuff except to demo it in both Drupal 6 and Drupal 7, like user groups and things like that. Joseph and I have one site that is using a translation. He actually set it up. That's about it. Joseph, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm also from Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, I don't really have much experience with multilingual except for that one site, which is basically like 10 pages in 2 languages and has no special features other than that. So that's kind of the extent of my experience with this, but I'm, here to learn more. Robert, do you want to go?
Sure. I'm Robert Lang. I'm in Altadena, California. On Zulip and GitHub, I'm bug folder, and I'm more or less just a hobbyist, but I want to learn more about multilingual.
Ligo.
Yep.
I'm Erik Veselius. I live in Bennekom, which is in the Netherlands. We also had a cold spell here, but not as cold as in the US, I think. Our minimum temperature was something like -15, so it's not that cold, but still, the last snow is now melting away. I start a Backdrop website a few weeks ago. I'm still developing it. So and one of the features is it's going to be a bilingual site. So that's why I had some contact with Tim about the language switcher, which it wasn't straightforward to me how to implement that. I have experience with Drupal websites just as a user, not a developer, but kind of an advanced user, I would say. I've been running a website which has several languages articles on the website. But there was Drupal. But it looks to me like it's quite similar in Backdrop as it was as it used to be in Drupal. So that's comforting to see. But I hope to learn. I hope to learn something this afternoon. For me, it's afternoon.
Good. And Indigo Zella?
Hi, I'm Indigo Zella from Austria. I'm a core contributor and module maintainer. Amongst others, I'm a maintainer of IITN. That's why I'm here mainly. I did several multilingual sites with Drupal, none yet with Backdrop, but that will come soon.
Okay. And the Nate account, if you want to introduce yourself or not. Okay. Not.
Sorry, it's Jen. I've only done one Backdrop site that's multilingual, but I've done a handful of Drupal sites in the distant past with multilingual. So hoping to contribute where I can and learn where I can't.
Great. So I'll just mention, I was telling Matthias that part of the impetus for this topic here was an issue in the issue queue that touched on the multilingual features. Could have been as long ago as last summer, and I wanted to test it and realized I didn't even have any clue how to test a multilingual feature on Backdrop, because I had never even fired up a site with multilingual. And I did play around with it a little bit, eventually figured out how to test it. I don't remember, Indigo Zella, if you helped me out at that time, somebody did, to get started. And since then, I've kind of wanted to get something on the schedule to just do a demo and talk about multilingual a bit. Recently, I had an opportunity to enable some multilingual features on a Drupal 8 site. So now I'm excited to hear from Matthias how it compares to Backdrop. So go ahead, Matthias.
Okay. Okay, this is the website I'm working on right now. I've done the same website in Drupal 7 with 2 languages. Now it goes to Drupal to Backdrop with 3 languages, we guess. This is a very basic setup I created today, but I will keep on working pretty soon with importing content and theming and things like that. Basically, I always use, it's not about theming today, but I always use a custom theme based on UI kit, not based on Bootstrap like Backdrop usually does. But it's not that important, I think. Maybe the scenario we try to create is, I create a basic page, which is called Meine Deutsche Seite, and have a French version using the same image and the same lead text, and an English version, the same image and the same lead text. That's basically the scenario we're trying to build. Speaking of modules, oops. This is what I'm using. Basically, there's the core translation modules, which is content translation. There are 3 of them. Content. Hey. Multilingual content, sorry. And
Search for lang, then you find all 3.
Huh?
Lang. Search,
Really?
Search for lang. Lang.
Indigo Zella, your
okay. Translation.
Your audio is very quiet. It's hard to hear you. So.
Yep. Okay, these are the core modules which are responsible for translating content. It's content translation, it's language to define, guess what, to define languages. Define here German, French, and English. And the third one was local. This is basically required for every multilingual project. I do not really know what it really does. It's just required.
It's interface
Language.
translation.
Negotiation functionality. Okay, this is these are the core functions. What I also used is some parts of the I18N called Multilingual Internationalization plugins. Just correct me if I'm wrong, or interrupt me if I'm telling something which is not true. This is the basic function is internationalization. I also use the menu translation and multilingual content, which adds some additional functions like we'll see after when I define the content type. And didn't even know that this exists years ago, synchronized translations, which we'll have a look at in a minute. Taxonomy translation we don't need. Translation redirect is not needed right now. It's pretty slow here. Okay, maybe one word to Drupal versus Backdrop. Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 has a very different system when it comes to translation. The difference is here in Backdrop / Drupal 6/7, we have one ID. When you look at the ID here, oops. The German one, or the English one has ID 17. The French has ID 16. And the German one has, I guess it's 15 because this was the first one I created. This is a very huge difference to Drupal 8 or Drupal 9. Drupal has now a system called entity translation, which means that when you have an article, let's say a blog post in 2 languages, the entire information is in one note. And this is very important that you know about this when you create multilingual websites. The reason why Drupal went to that was it's a better solution when you're working with content relations. When you relate content to each other, then it has some advantages when the language, when one node contains all the languages. But I'm happy with both. Also, the node translation, the Backdrop translation system has its advantages because I have a lot of projects where it's not a one-to-one relation across the languages. Sometimes the German part of a website is much bigger than the English part, and it's not very much related. For my kind of projects, node translation is very okay. Is there a question so far, or? Okay, because what I did, or where the language is defined is in a content type. I have this is called Basis-Seite basic page. This is my most important content type for all projects. And then I have to enable the support here with translation. These are the additional multilingual settings from the module. I forgot the name. Some of the additional settings for creating multilingual pages. Set the current language. This is require this. I think they speak for themselves. Current language as default. Default language is current language. Require language makes sense. Lock language makes sense. I never change it. And then show translation links. And the second one is, oops. This one here. In every multilingual project, you have things you don't want to translate. It's very often it's how big means main image, it's the image. And for the sake of showing the demo, I took also lead as being synchronized, meaning not translatable. I have to lead text here, go to edit mode, my new lead text here, save. And you see it has changed across all languages. My screen is pretty small here. Even the French version has an English lead text right now. Makes no sense, but just for the demo to show that every field can be declared as synchronizable.
And to clarify, is that a contrib module that did that, or is that part of core?
This
That's
is contrib.
part of the submodule of I18N.
Yeah.
I18N synchronize.
And I always, thank you, Indigo. I always use this function on the images. In 90% of the cases, you don't want to have separate images on language versions. If you don't use the synchronize function, if there's a change of image, you have to do it in all 3 languages, which makes no sense, which is tedious.
Oh, that's very useful to know.
Yeah, but let's change this one here to the red one. And now you got it in all 3 languages. Changed. This is basically how you create multilingual content. It's on a per content type. You can have multilingual content types and others that are not. And yeah, this is on a content level. Create a new one. It's now on German because I choose it to be the default language. My other one, mein deutsches Beispiel. Okay. And now I got the translation link here where I can say, create a French translation or choose an existing one. Let's create the French translation. Well, don't know what that means. Ah. Okay, this has been synchronized. Let's change just to get the idea. and the English one. Okay. Another point is the organization of the navigation. Because when I try to put this page into the navigation, the main navigation, let's try this. Menu settings, provide a menu link. This is my primary navigation. Link. Then you got it in here, which is okay. But you don't have it in a French version, which is also okay. Let's change it. Oops, edit. Create a menu. Okay, now we got it in French and in French and English. A pretty cool feature where it was introduced in Backdrop some years ago is when you go to the navigation menu, administration menu, you can filter per language here. This is very cool. Was not in Drupal 7, but came to Backdrop some years ago. It's pretty cool when working with the multilingual sites. And maybe the last part I want to show you is the site-wide administration. And this is the area where there are some missing functions. Let's go to the, oops, language. You might know this one, to define the languages you want. This is for front end and back end. So when you're using the French, oh no, I expected this to be French. It's not that important. Okay, and after defining the languages, I can set a default language, which is for the demo I changed to English. Most of the time it's German for my projects. This detection selection was pretty hard to understand when it did the first multilingual language. These are 5 kind of identifying which language is active, and it's treated one after another. So you can say if the default language is first, the other items do not matter anymore. But I can use the default language as a very last fallback. Maybe the first item, the first condition is the browser language, because in France, most of the people will have French browsers or French user interface. Then it would change to the browser language. And this is a thing you can wrap your head around for it looks like easy, but there are millions of possible conditions and maybe things you can do wrong. I usually use default language here. This one is also quite important. It defines this one here, EN for English, FR for French, and DE for German. It's kind of a it's not a subdomain, but a prefix, yeah.
So
And the last thing I want to show you is this one here, which I'm not sure where the status is. Maybe we can discuss this later. For me, for example, I'd like to have a separate 404 or 403 page per language. And this is right now, it's not language aware. This was language aware in Drupal 7 when loading or activating a module called variable translations.
This wasn't possible in Drupal 7 without contract modules. It was nothing that was in core. It was 8 and N variables, which relied on the horrible variables module, which I refused to port. I have enough to do with 8 and N. But this is work in progress. There's already a core issue for that. It is possible to set these per language, but you have to know the tricks. You basically create a layout with one path and put in content which is translatable, and the nodes provide the translation, and the layout provides the path. So it is possible.
Okay.
You just has to know how to do. Yes, there's a core issue, and it has already been asked in the I18N issue queue, but I can't fix it. It's the variables module is not portable.
Anyway, it's much better than in Drupal 7, even without the variable translation module. It's much better. It's a more cleaned up user interface, as in much areas Backdrop is. And another very last...
When using the strength of the layout module, a lot is possible.
Okay, you mentioned that, yeah. One thing I did, this was the very first multilingual Backdrop site I created. I could do a lot with using the rules model back then. For example, defining the default front page, I created a rule. It's not the most elegant thing you can imagine, but it's okay. Because
it's actually easier in Backdrop. Okay, there's a module for that. Multilingual front page.
Yeah.
You can define just as you need it. You can take a view or a layout or whatever you want and define which language shows what.
Speaking of taxonomy, this is what I tried to achieve, that I could create one category and translate it. It worked, but it's not shown when creating the node. This is also a question where I'm not sure what the actual status is.
So what you're saying is that you have
what you see, I can explain the problem. Your interface language currently is English, so you get the English. If you switch to the interface language, this also changes. No? Deutsche Kategorie.
This is okay.
There's a core issue for that, by the way.
Okay. No, it should be French right now. It's
okay.
I can work without it. It would be great if it's working, but in small projects, the content manager knows some categories of what they mean in other languages.
So let's talk a little bit about how all this works and how the pieces fit together. First of all, so I18N is something I kept hearing about, and not working in multilingual sites, I had to look that up. And basically that seems to be a general term for international what is it, internationalization or international and national? What is it?
Yes, internationalization. It's the numbers of characters between I and 18.
And what is the role? So is this a group of modules in Backdrop, or one module with a bunch of submodules, or what is it?
It's a monster of six modules or so, 6 or more.
Okay.
I don't know. But I could look at GitHub.
Yeah.
Well, exactly how many is important, but what role does that play in this whole translation scheme or multilingual scheme?
What I really, for my project, what I really need is menu translation. It's really menu translation. This is good to have, but you don't really need it. These are these settings. Oops. This this one is this one.
Okay.
So you don't need them necessarily. They make your life easier, but you don't need them.
Is this largely?
If you have a really simple thing, just a few pages and a few languages, maybe too, you get along with core alone. But very likely, if it comes to taxonomic translation, menu item translation, or stuff like that, you will need I18N.
Okay. So this internationalization has a lot to do with translating the interface, doesn't it?
Also,
Yeah.
Actually, that's another thing. Field translation, translate the field labels.
Yep.
Is field
That's
translation?
also something core
This one
doesn't
here.
provide.
Hmm.
I18N provides a lot of stuff that's not in core.
Yeah. So, for example, the help text for fields, right?
For instance, label and help text.
For example, this text can be multilingual also in the backend.
Yes.
Or this one. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
So the interface translations, I've never quite understood. Do they come with Backdrop core, or does Backdrop download them when you enable them? Or how does that?
Interface translation depends. If it's something that ships with core, ships with code, then it's translatable via user interface translation. There it is, and config. But if it's something provided by admins, for instance, dynamically created fields or labels, help texts, stuff like that, is not translatable via core interface translation by default. This is something I18N field submodule provides.
Okay.
This is core, right? Translating strings is
I18N
core.
also uses, this is locally in background. I18N also uses the same concept, but provides translatable strings provided by users, by admins, site builders. Fields, for instance, get created by admins, and they ship with labels and help texts, and these texts wouldn't be translatable with core alone. That's what I18N field submodule provides.
Okay.
But that's only needed if you really need translatable field labels, which isn't always the case.
Matthias, click on that import tab.
Yep. This is where I load the German translation. I have my own translation. I have some kind of base installation, which I always create the translation, export it to the customer sites. But let's create another language. We still have some minutes here to go. Let's create I have to choose one which is pretty popular, because let's go Spanish. Okay, we have created Spanish. It's there. But there's
no
no
translation yet.
no translation for the interface. And this is what import is for. You can go to Drupal.org, or now it's, I think Olaf created a backdrop version, which I never used.
Nope,
Jen
we
put
are
a
on
link.
backdrop.org.
Shame on me.
Jen put a link in the chat. Localized.backdropcms.org.
Okay. And there you get the Spanish translation. Localize backdrop.
So do you have to like go to the localization site and download it, or does Backdrop connect directly?
I'm
Not yet.
not sure.
Not yet.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
work in progress.
So you would download it locally, the translation, and then upload it to Backdrop.
Currently, yes.
Okay.
And Matthias, you use your own, for German, you use your own tailored translation. So it's based on these kind of general files, and you have adapted that yourself?
I took the base import from Drupal 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I have most of the websites I create are pretty much the same technically. I have a big toolbox of content types, and if you look here, I use them on every project, and this is why I have my own. But on the long term, I will contribute and use the official one, of course.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, and import it into Spanish. The file is pretty slow. There won't be that much translated items in Spanish. Ah, estructura. Cool.
So go to the language page again, if you can.
This one, huh?
Yeah. So this percentage here, is that the percentage of the sort of translatable strings that have been translated?
Exactly.
So-
exactly.
So the number on the right is basically the number of T functions in the backdrop code base.
Does that include contrib modules as well? Because that number seems to change.
Probably.
And
I
I think so, yes.
yeah.
I think so.
I don't know.
You're supposed to be able to get translations for contrib modules on the localized site too. So it's a lot of work for the user, but you take a list of all your modules and you go there and you get core and all your modules, and they're supposed to add together to make 100% of your site. We got to make that better.
Mm.
so how does somebody contribute or help with like the French or the Spanish? That seems like a pretty low percentage that's been translated. How do we improve that?
You simply register here, but I've never done that. I tried to do that in Drupal, but never got an invitation. But this is years ago. And after that, I started creating my own translation.
Long story short, ask Olaf.
No, actually, there's some. Yeah, sorry. There's some documentation at the homepage for localize. So because we always used to ask Olaf, and we wouldn't have to. So if you go to the homepage, I think he documented the process where the most important steps.
I've helped with translating some parts of Civi CRM, so the Dutch strings for Civi CRM, and that works on some kind of central repository where you can then log in and then you do the translations, and that's then being injected into these .bo files.
That's also possible with localized backdrop CMS.org. Yes. One can also create an account and apply as a translator.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to look for Dutch. How it's with Dutch can maybe help a bit.
Yay! Cool.
There's a new contributor that is Greek. So the other Greek person that was lurking around was actually a WordPress fellow, and he was just curious. But it seems that this new contributor that we have already has existing sites in D8 or D9. If they start contributing, I'll probably be helping out with the Greek language, because I've been with Patchwork for like 5 or 6 years and I haven't touched the Greek language at all. Shame on me.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions or things to share?
Well, Matthias, I saw you installed the translation client. Maybe you can just show that one. When we're talking about translations, maybe you can just show the client. It's a contrib module, which I happen to be maintainer.
This led to some problems.
Hey.
This one?
Yeah.
Yep. You have an expert, Matthias, to ask questions.
Or I disabled it. Was not sure if this was really creating a problem, but I had some white screens last week.
You know the maintainer, so.
This is basically a great module because,
we don't see it right now because it's down below. I don't think we don't see your full screen.
Screen
So
sharing.
you should scroll down a bit.
I don't see no, it does not appear.
Check your settings. Your account.
Oops.
Edit. Localization client. Oh no, it's not set to hidden.
The admin.
That's okay. Then second spot, check for paths where it's disabled.
Sorry?
Localization client has settings. Config. Oh, right. No, and it's also not disabled. Then I don't know.
No. But basically you get a big button here where you can translate on the respective page.
Click caches? Click caches?
Oh. No.
And is it supposed to be showing in both admin and front end pages?
Here we go. Do you see the blue one?
Not really. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
This the cool
This
thing
is-
about that module is that you translate in context.
Okay,
You see where this translation goes.
so
So it's
when I
not that
translate the
abstract.
logout, no,
It seems to be showing only tokens.
yeah.
Yeah, there's
What-
something wrong.
What I try to achieve is
Can you please provide a bug report?
excuse me.
Not now, not now.
Okay,
I need a bug report for that.
okay. But when it works, it's possible to translate this tiny link here, logout, to the respective German expression. This is really cool.
But would that also be useful for nodes? Or is it just the interface?
No, that's only interface. Everything that's in T, anything that's wrapped in T.
Got it.
Because it should be possible to translate the edit link text here directly in the front end. But it, okay,
For those,
I have to check
for
it.
those, sorry I joined late, but for those watching the video, because I see that it's being recorded, when we say everything that is in T, T is a function that allows things to be translated. So basically anything in code that has been wrapped in a T function, that's what comes up, or what should come up here in page text.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the over. It's the front-end version of this one here, basically. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there you have to search actively for expressions, and with localize, you have it on every page.
What's right on the page where you are, yes.
Okay.
That's what it's supposed to do, but it seems broken on your side. So there must be something, there must be a bug or a conflict with something.
Yeah, conflict could also be. Because some modules are not on the latest version. Okay, let's try another one. Any other questions?
When you deal with taxonomy translation, do you prefer to have taxonomy terms per language, or do you prefer to have them localized?
I disabled it at the beginning of the demo.
I think it would be useful to have a combination of taxonomy terms that are only in the language that you're working in, and so that are translated and then you have, for example, names of individuals or of places which are the same in any language, and then you don't need a translation. So that would be useful to have those two possibilities, I would say.
I have a vocabulary called site in every project. And here I enabled the multilingual support like this. And then usually I take this option. Meaning that expression can have the translated version versus have a completely independent taxonomy system or a vocabulary tree per language, which I never use.
Yeah, seems sensible.
Now let's check again if the localization works here. Go to French. Just curious. Ah, look at this. It works.
Yeah, you disabled the module.
Yeah, disabled it for the demo.
Okay,
Okay.
one bug less to fix.
But it's fun to work with multilingual and Backdrop. It's really fun. It's not as big as what Drupal can do in version 9. For example, there's a translation workflow which you can activate, which makes sense when you have different contributors per language. But this is not the kind of projects Backdrop is used for. For the typical Backdrop project, multilingual is great, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how this factors into this discussion, but there's been some growing activity in terms of other language sort of backdrop sites. Alan Mells from Altigrade just recently set up a Russian language sort of backdrop site to talk about backdrop. So it's forums and discussions about backdrop in Russian. And he's sort of raising the question about, how to handle the international community. Like, should the Russian community set up all their own property, or is there some way to integrate that? And I wonder, I don't think any of our core backdrop sites right now have multilingual enabled. And I don't know if we should experiment with that or if that's just too big of a task. And maybe it's better left to local communities to handle.
Yeah, I think that was something we decided not to take on as a community, and we want to encourage any local group that wants a site in their own language to make one, and we'll try and support that effort however we can.
Right. But we
I
have
believe it would be a huge task.
Right.
If one side catched it all.
Yeah, at some point, my dream is, at least for the documentation side, to allow translation, content translation, so that the documentation at least can be translated. I'm not sure. Maybe this will get the back burner for a while because, I don't know, Google Translate does wonders these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I see, like, especially if we allow comments, same in documentation at least, because it's the same. I'm not sure if you guys like use the API in Drupal.org, but there's instances where people make comments that are useful, like use cases, or even fix the code examples, or like I think it's valuable to have feedback. So yeah, having multilingual abilities there would be great.
I think
two different tasks. One thing comments, and the other thing multilingual documentation. I don't get it, probably. Greg?
Sorry?
Aren't
Sorry?
these two different tasks?
Well,
these different tasks. One thing, allowing comments. Comments are
yes.
cool. I like them a lot when I have real use cases. As an example, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be multilingual.
Yeah, so the actual content for documentation, not the API side, but now we merged documentation and API. So the user guide is still in English, and some people their English is not as good. So if members of the respective language community have better English than them, they can translate it and they can benefit the entire community of that language. So that's where I was getting at. So not specifically translating comments, we can allow any language comments there, but having a translation for the content itself.
Okay, well, it's been almost an hour. I think we can wrap this meeting up. Let's, again, a couple of reminders of other upcoming events. We have another user group in 2 weeks. It'll be at a different time because Peter is doing a lot of work on the B module. This will be command line tools for Backdrop, and Peter's in Australia, and it's middle of the night for him right now. So we're going to try and do, it'll be, I think it's about 6 hours later than this, so it won't probably be good for those in Europe. But we'd like to do more programming, like virtual user groups in different time zones so that we can, better address our global audience. So, and we do have Backdrop Live. And after this meeting, we're going to talk a little bit more about that if anybody wants to hang around. Backdrop Live is going to be a 24-hour event with discussions on all kinds of backdrop topics. And if you just raise your hand if you participated. I think I can see the people I'm unsure of. Robert or Eric, were either of you in Backdrop Live? No. So we did it over a 24-hour schedule in 3-hour blocks. So 3 hours of sessions, then a 3-hour break, another 3 hours of sessions. And we did it for 48 hours in September. This time it'll just be 24 hours. So we're trying to get more participation in Europe this time though. We had a couple of sessions in the middle of the night for the US in sort of the European time zone. And we'd like to get a little more activity going on in particularly Europe, where we have a lot of users. So if you have a few minutes, hang around after this, but I think that's it. I'm going to end the stream. Give me a